Hi and welcome back to my channel. My name's Ebony and this is where I like to talk about all the spooky books I like to read, and today I'm giving you my June reading wrap up. I got through 7 books in June. It was a pretty successful month. I think I had my lowest rated book of the year plus one of my, if not, my fave book of the year so far. So I'm itching to tell you all about it, so let's get straight into talking about the books. Most of these I actually read during a reading vlog that I posted. I'll link it below if you would like to watch. It's a nice hour long. I have been housebound for the last month because of a shoulder injury, so it gave me the perfect chance to catch up on some reading, although it's been really hard to actually hold books. So it's been slow going, but I started that vlog and my month with The Boy in the Striped Pajamas by John Boyne. Now, my husband picked this book for me off my shelves, and why would he do this to me? This was, I don't think enjoyed is the right word, but I'm glad I read it. I think that's the best way to put it. This was a very interesting way to tell this sort of story in this era and this time period. It's a very important read. I loved that it was written from the point of view of this 9-year-old boy. However, it was still in third person. So it was very cleverly done. I thought John Boyne's choice, like literary device there, was very clever, and it really translated well to me and it hooks you in. I think this is only 200 pages and the way it builds to the conclusion, literally the last like 2 or 3 pages, it is heart-wrenching and heartbreaking. I have no words. I couldn't actually rate this book. This is a no rating. I just don't feel like it's appropriate for the content. I don't know how to explain it. I don't know if you're the same. This historical fiction I think is really important for people to read, and I think it's a more palatable way to read it because it is from the point of view of this 9-year-old boy and the friendship he makes with one of the boys across in Auschwitz and how he slowly comes to terms with like his privilege, and he's learning and he's piecing it all together. There were some really interesting things that children do, the things that children's minds will do to protect them from scary things, I think was very cleverly done in this. So for example, like Auschwitz he kept referring to it as out with, or instead of Hitler or Führer, he called him the Fury, and I found that a very clever way to do it. And even though like his father or other people would correct him, even the corrections themselves were never actually written down. And so you just piece it together yourself. And I thought that was a really clever way to remind you that you really are inside this little innocent boy's mind. And I don't know why that stuck with me, just the way that it was like, oh, you're not correcting it and you're letting us fill in that blank. Even though it's written from, a child's point of view, it's not dumbing anything down. It doesn't feel YA. I feel like anyone could read this beyond 12 years old. Like, I feel like this is a really important read and I'm really glad I read it, but I'm not rating this book, but I am glad that I read it this month. Next up, I read my family book club's pick. My brother was running this book club. His choice of genre was sci-fi, and the book we landed on was Childhood's End by Arthur C. Clarke. Love this cover, but unfortunately the book did not deliver for me personally. I go into this a lot more again in my vlog, but thoughts on this in general with that it just felt a little bit convoluted. It felt as though the author had a lot of great ideas but couldn't quite mesh them and meld them together to make a really profound story. I think there were messages in this that were really great, but just not executed quite deftly enough for me. Like, I know this is mid-century sci-fi, thinking about the future. There's a lot that you can predict, and he did a good job. Like, it's quite fun to read these old sci-fi novels, especially around technological advances in the world, where you go, yeah, we do that. Like, there was a point in this where it was like, oh, people will spend however many hours a day in front of the television and there'll be endless streams of content. And I was like, fuck man, that's where we're at now. So those are cool. But my main issue with this book was that there was no characters to connect to because none of them were fleshed out and none of them were original. They all had this exact same voice, the exact same phrasing. They all spoke exactly the same way. It just sounded like the author was using them as a vessel to like spew his own opinions. I don't know. And so the language was so stilted when they were speaking that it reminds you that this is a mid-century science fiction novel, if that makes sense. And there's nothing wrong with that. It doesn't bother me when something is a product of its time. That can be really enjoyable. When you are dealing with the future, I don't know, I would have enjoyed if he had tried to change the language. There's so much of this that felt so dense. there was all this exposition for shit that you didn't really need. And the stuff that you wanted is the stuff that he discarded and didn't develop. So that was a bit disappointing. I enjoyed some characters in this. I thought they were really good. Like, I actually enjoyed part 1 the most. There was a little bit of like a kidnapping situation that was really fun, not spoiling anything, but I thought like, oh, hell yeah, we've got a little bit of a mystery. This is going to be really enjoyable. And then, oh my God, it just went and did its weird thing. I didn't enjoy the direction it took. I couldn't get my head around the ending. I had to look up spoilers literally within 5 minutes of closing the book. Like, I couldn't remember what I'd just fucking read. And that's a problem to me. So, I don't know. I'm not saying this is a bad book and others might enjoy it. I do enjoy science fiction, but maybe I'm just, unfortunately, someone who enjoys more modern science fiction. So I ended up giving this 2 stars in the end. It gets a star because I read it, I finished it, and I did enjoy some of the concepts. And I'm not saying he's a bad writer. So it's like I landed on 2 stars. It's my lowest rated book of the year so far, unfortunately. And I don't think I'm going to read any more of Arthur C. Clarke. And I'm so bummed because I really do love this edition that I bought. And yeah, 2 stars. There's my family book club book tracker. Bugger. A lot to unpack in this and lots you could enjoy. As you can imagine, this was a very interesting book for discussion though, and that is great in a book club. Oh, I've poured myself a crisp rosé this afternoon because we're in the middle of winter here in Brisbane, but today is literally, I think it's 21 degrees still. The sun is out, blue sky. Yesterday was 26 degrees. It was hot. It's concerning. Don't love it. But then again, I do. I just wish it was like this hot all year round. I'm not looking forward to summer, if this is how it is, at the start of July when it should be like 18. Oh, it's not good, but it is perfect cold wine weather. So I've poured this, so I'm very excited to be here. This is a New Zealand rosé. I'm really enjoying it. I'll pop up a little overlay of what I bought this afternoon. I haven't tried it before, but you can always trust New Zealand wines most of the time. So this is really nice. I haven't had a rosé in a while. I'm not as fussy with rosés. This has become a whole different video. I apologize. But I am a white wine gal, but I don't like sweet rosés, and it's always a gamble. And this has got a really nice kind of acidity to it. So this is a perfect kind of dry rosé for me. Anyway, the next book though, we have gone the opposite direction. Okay, I've read a historical fiction, I've read a sci-fi, mid-century sci-fi. I need to go back to my bread and butter. And boy, did I do it. I'm so excited to talk about it. I picked up The Gathering by C.J. Tudor. I gave this book 5 stars and I freaking loved it. I think this could be a contender for my best book of 2026 so far. The more that I've thought about it and sat on it, the more I realize I loved it. This is set, I realize I haven't really told you much about like the synopses of those other 2 books. I apologize about that. Boy in the Striped Pajamas, obviously you can probably surmise what that could be about. Childhood and is very vague, so that's why I didn't really talk about it. I don't think if you want to read it, I don't think knowing much is going to help you. I think go in a little bit blind, but basically these overlords end up on Earth, like their spaceships over all the major cities of Earth, and they want to get rid of poverty and disease and war and all these things. And then humans end up in this kind of golden age where they can do whatever they want, they can study, they can live, they can be blah, blah, blah. And that's kind of all you need to know. Okay, so that's why I haven't talked about it. I apologize. I'm just adding this in. I'm so sorry about that. But the less you know, the better if you choose to read that sort of book. And like I said, Boy in the Striped Pajamas is a bit self-explanatory. Basically, it's a little boy with his family. His father works for Hitler and gets stationed out in Auschwitz. And so this family with this little boy move out there, and that's all I'm going to tell you. Anyway, The Gathering, C.J. Tudor. This one I didn't expect to love. I knew I would enjoy it, but I didn't think I would love it. You know what I mean? You when you get those books? This is a chiller. This is a perfect cross between police procedural and horror, I think. It just towed that line really, really seamlessly for me, and I ate it up, baby. I ate it up. This is lengthier too. This is over 400 pages, this edition anyway, and it doesn't feel like it. Like you could read 500, 600 pages of this story and enjoy it. This is set in Dead Heart, Alaska, this small town where there's a population of about 670 people who are living, and then they have this colony of vampires up in the mountains as well. They kind of live side by side, kind of, because you can imagine what humans get like, basically. And this woman, her name is Barbara Atkins, I believe is her name. Yeah, Barbara Atkins. She is a detective, but she's also a doctor in vampire anthropology. So it's I loved it. I thought that was so unique and so clever. So they keep calling her like vampire doc, and I love it. But she gets sent out there because in this small town, a teenage boy has been found with his throat slashed open, drained of blood. So all the people of the town are going, it's the vampires. They did it. We want to cull. And she's been sent there to actually determine if it was a vampire or not, because they can't just kill a colony of vampires because there's laws to protect them without her go ahead. So that's all I'm going to tell you, because that's all I knew, and it was so freaking good. The only other thing that I'll tell you about this that hopefully draws you in like it did for me is that the head of the colony, vampire colony, she's the oldest. She's centuries years old, like 400 years old, but she looks like a 10-year-old girl. And I love the way like her dialogue, she's so crass and so rude and so vulgar. And so I can just picture it. It was so fantastic. I loved that this had, like that police procedural crime thriller aspect of it, with Barbara Atkins ending up in this small Alaskan town. And you can imagine like the tension between the people of this town and her, because they feel like she is just on the side of the vampires and she doesn't believe them. But more bodies start showing up, things happen, oh my gosh. And it's like, it's just the tension, you could cut it with a knife. I was taking guesses of if it was vampire, if it was human, only because I think humans do way worse things to each other than freaking monster ever could. And the way it all started linking up, and there were some really great reveals. It wasn't like twists, but reveals, if that makes sense. They're still surprising and so freaking satisfying, but I cannot tell you about them without spoiling shit in this book. I just think if you are someone who is like, I love a detective mystery, but I also want like a monster. I want a vampire and I want some blood and gore. There is definitely some not body horror, but there's some gory stuff in this with bodies and murder. There's also some really grim family background stuff with like Barbara Atkins. So you get a really detailed and nuanced narrative in this, I feel like. It just, I don't know, for me, it personally hit all the right spots. It was paced brilliantly. You never feel like it drags. For me, it didn't drag whatsoever, not even in often, in that 50% mark, it takes a little dip until you get up to the climax and the action again. Didn't happen for me. She just popped in all these moments at the exact right times. Like it's expertly paced and plotted. Read it if you love vampires. Read it if you love murder mysteries as well. Because there's lots of interesting things. And I also love that kind of small town tension with the outsider coming in, a detective who they feel isn't on their side, but they've all got secrets and they've all, you know what I mean? Like there's so much in it. It kind of gives like True Blood vibes as well, because it's in another world where humans and vampires are living side by side, but there's also laws to protect. I think I mentioned just before, like there's laws protecting vampires. You can't just go out and fucking kill them, And so it's this interesting thing. I don't know. I loved it. I think this is, a definition of a chiller, So highly recommend. 5 stars for me. I can't wait to read this Serenity Falls by CJ Tudor. I've pre-ordered that because I freaking loved this so much. The next book I read, because I remembered that I own a Kindle and I'm paying for Kindle Unlimited, is Tradwife by T.C. Parker. This had a lot to say. This was a really gritty feminist horror, told in a really interesting way. It's all told in interview journalistic formatting, and so it reads very much like non-fiction true crime kind of expose of the Tradwife community and trend, essentially. So you get a really good like backstory and education on how the Tradwife movement has come along, especially in our modern day time. So I found that quite interesting, but then it did feel a little bit like I was reading like stuff for a criminology degree. I don't know if that makes sense. I did think this was, okay, so I'm rambling. So the author of this, she uses basically like this massacre. So in this tradwife community that gets established in the UK called the Heart of Solomon, 6 people, 3 couples, have been brutally murdered, but their actual bodies aren't at the scene of the crime. It's just parts of them, pieces of them that have been chopped up. And they're all very symbolic of certain things that these people are guilty of. You know what I mean? So yeah, it's grim, which that's the bit I enjoy. That's the horror part. So this did feel a little bit different to the endless number of tradwife novels that are out there. Like, I have no interest in reading Yesteryear. I was going to read Tradwife by Saratoga Schaefer, but I just don't think I'm in that vibe at the moment. And I think this kind of scratched that itch, if you know what I mean. Because this was so true crime-esque, it maybe would translate really nicely into audiobook form. So maybe I would have enjoyed it more if I had consumed it that way, but I did enjoy reading on my Kindle. I always enjoy it. It is only 200 and something pages, 70 pages, and it did drag. So the fact I went from The Gathering, which is over 400, into this one that was like half, it felt very, it was slow. And you know, sometimes you read quicker on your Kindle, and that was not happening here. So that was a little bit concerning. I enjoyed that this was quite unabashed in its gruesomeness. It doesn't shy away from how insidious these alt-right, ultra-conservative, anti-feminist cultures can be for women specifically. And I thought that was quite powerfully done in this. So if you're after like a really grisly, fast-paced plot, I probably wouldn't pick this up. This definitely feels almost like a study, an essay, like I said, expose, investigative journalist kind of format. So it can read a little bit dry and very nonfiction, which is okay. I just wasn't prepared for that. And so it's reader error, not author error, my favorite go-to saying. And what I did like about it was that each couple, it was broken up into like, you're kind of learning about them for each chapter, each person. And like the author in the book, Gina, I think the character is, she is interviewing exes or parents and piecing together what made them want to be part of this community and what led them to the Heart of Solomon. That was quite clever. There are some little twists. There are some fun things that happen towards the end. It just takes a little while to get there for me, especially for like a short novel on Kindle. It maybe wasn't worth, the payoff just didn't quite work for me. I won't spoil anything, but I will say check your trigger warnings. This kind of has everything under the sun. There was stuff that was a little bit too far for me, that not too far, but it kind of walked that line of like, okay, now we're definitely in the true crime space, do you know? Where I was like, oh, I don't want to be reading that when I'm here for escapism. At the end of the day, I'm still here to read books for fun and enjoyment. If I'm reading a non-fiction book, absolutely, I know I'm going into that. There are times I do read true crime novels, but at least I'm in that headspace. Whereas for this, there was a certain couple in this where it was like the crimes and things that they were doing as a couple, I realize is some of the stuff that really I can't consume or I can't read for fun because it tips over into the real world a little bit too much of some of the worst people ever. In my opinion. I can't really say much more. If you want to know more, then you're welcome to leave me a comment and we can talk. But I actually still gave this 3.75 stars. I know it's really specific. It didn't quite feel like a 3 or a 3.5, but it wasn't a 4. So I landed on that 3.7 because there was still so much to unpack. It's a great book to discuss. I think there's a lot here. I do think it's also underrated within the tradwife trend at the moment. And I do wish more people would read this one, because I feel like it's got a lot to say. And yeah, it's a great feminist horror, you know? You're still rooting, go girls. You know, the end up was like, as you should. It is satisfying, I will say that. But it does also kind of become a little bit unrealistic and ludicrous as well, but that's okay. I had a fun time in the end. It doesn't focus on the massacre so much. I think I might have enjoyed that more. It's definitely the backstories, character study almost of all these couples. And so, yeah, it wasn't quite what I was after at the time, but I did still enjoy it and I thought it was written really well. So all props to T.C. Parker because I still think it's a great book and it's different in the genre at the moment. And how cool is this cover art design? That pin-up retro style really drew me in. So 3.75 stars for Tradwife. As you can imagine, after Tradwife, And in the last few books, I was like, I need something maybe a little bit lighter, a little palate cleanser maybe. So I picked up The Other Side of Now by Paige Harbison, another book that I absolutely just adore. Look at this. Oh, and I am so happy to report that this lives up to it so it can stay on my shelf on display. I loved this book. It was so close to 5 stars, and I think, again, this is reader error, not author error, because I put it down for a couple of days, and that's only because I've been having shoulder pains and it's a hardback and it's a little bit tricky for me to read at the moment. I don't even know where to begin. Basically, this is following, what's her name? Meg. This is about Meg. Oh, troubled Meg. She is currently like a TV star in Hollywood. She's got it all. She's dating a heartthrob. She's got everything from the outside. And then she has a little mini breakdown at her 30th party up in the Hollywood Hills and decides, fuck this, I need to get out of town. I'm going to book myself a holiday. And so she books an Airbnb in the little Irish town that she was hoping to move to when she was 18, but when she was 18 to go to acting school, but that never happened. Her best friend then died. And she's going, maybe that's what I need now. I'm 30, maybe I should go there. Fuck it. She books it. When she gets there, she is walking around town. People are noticing her. She goes to the pub. People know her, but not like, hey, you're famous, I know you. More like they know her name, her real name, not her stage name. They recognize her. They're acting like friends. There's all this weird energy. And she goes back to her room, her Airbnb, and she looks at herself and she's like, oh, shit. That's me, but me if I had never had the work done, if I didn't get my nose job, if I hadn't lost, 10 kilos. This is what I would have looked like. And then she finds out her best friend is alive and well in Ireland in this reality, but wants nothing to do with her. That sounds really complicated, but it's not. I hope that wasn't too, of a stupid way to describe this book. This is an alternate reality kind of novel. Obviously, The Other Side of Now, as a title, should give it away. I related to this book a lot. Let's get real, friends. When it was 2019 and I auditioned for a musical theatre training school, and I got accepted, and I was going to move to Belfast, Ireland in 2020. It was literally New Year's Day 2020 and I got my acceptance email, and it was the first time I'd been rejected by everywhere in Australia. Everything I'd been working towards was this. I got into a 2-year musical theatre training school, got to live in Ireland to do it, and I would have left September 2020, but as we all know, the fucking world went to shit and that dream never came true, and I'm still working to get out of Australia. Anyway, so when I was reading this, I was like, is this about me? Am I Meg? Obviously, I don't have the Hollywood riches, so I'm not Meg, but I related to that aspect. I don't know, you know what I mean? Like, when something you're like, oh, fuck, this was written for me. That's how I felt reading this book. And so I related to that feeling of like, I could have been living a different life. And I thought that was quite enjoyable. It's insanely easy to read. Like, you are not going to struggle reading this. It's not simple necessarily. I mean, it's simple, but it doesn't read like poorly written, if that makes sense. It also doesn't read YA, thank fuck, because I'm not a YA reader most of the time. Some exceptions. So it just towed that line of just like really easy to read. It was wholesome and sweet. Some heavy themes in this around grief and loss. I would mention, obviously, with her best friend being dead in the Hollywood timeline, but she's alive in the Ireland timeline. And there's a bit of romance. So it's just, it was really fun. I think similar to 7 Year Slip, which I gave 5 stars. I loved that book, where it's like, I love the kind of like time jumpy, alternate reality, messing with time element in my romance novels. And I think that's the only way I can kind of read them and enjoy them. So I loved that this had that. And again, I could just relate to it, and I could relate to Meg. She was troubled and she was going through it. She was having kind of like this quarter life crisis, and I have too over the last few years. And so there was just a lot that I enjoyed, and I also loved, thank the Lord, that it didn't just have this really neat, tidy ending, because that's not real life, and especially the story that is told in this. You don't want it to be this cut and dry fairy tale ending, and it's not. And I loved the way it all tied together. The last little page, oh my God, there were so many good things. You're really going to be satisfied if that sounds like your kind of book. It's a definite self-exploration and introspective novel if you're willing to let yourself be immersed and taken in by it. I was, and for obvious reasons, and it paid off, and I just had a great time while reading it. It was very emotional, and it was touching, and it was funny. There was a lot of funny humor in it, and I just ate it up. So I gave this 4.5 in the end, and I'm glad that this can sit proudly on my shelf. I even started tabbing it, like, who am I? But this was a very enjoyable novel and a great palate cleanser amongst all the other stuff, the dark shit that I'd read in June. So yeah, 4.5 stars for The Other Side of Now. I lied when I said I wasn't going to read any more Trident Wife novels, but I picked up The Stepford Wives by Ira Levin. Is that how you pronounce it? I'm so sorry. And what the fuck? I didn't know anything about it. I obviously know the term Stepford Wife. I feel like that's quite a pop culture thing. There were obviously a few movies of this. I've since watched the Nicole Kidman and Matthew Broderick version of it, which was wild and nothing fucking like this, but that was fun too. This freaking novel, how do I talk about it? All the beautiful people live in idyllic Stepford, Connecticut, an affluent suburban Eden populated with successful, satisfied husbands and beautiful, dutiful wives. For Joanna Eberhardt, newly arrived with her husband and 2 children, it all seems too good to be true, from the sweet welcome wagon lady to all those cheerful, friendly faces in the supermarket checkout lines. But beneath the town's flawless surface, something is sordid and wrong, something abominable, with its roots in the local men's association. That's right. And it may already be too late for Joanna to save herself from being devoured by Stepford's hideous perfection. I thought it was just easier to read that because I don't even know how to put into words this plot. And this is only 140 pages. I read it in an hour or two, and I loved it. I'm so tempted to give this 5 stars as well. I sat on 4.75 because I'm stingy. So we'll see at the end of the year if I end up bumping this up to a 5, because 4.75 is silly, isn't it? Anyway, one thing I really want to point out about this book is that this could have been written in 2026 by a woman. This is written by a freaking man in 1972, something like that. Freaking hell. And I'm not saying anything against the horror authors of the world that are men. Some are my favorite. But I don't know how to explain it to anyone who's not read this book. This read very modern, it read very sophisticated, and it read very feminine in its writing, if that makes sense. That was my first comment when I finished it, was that it was like, yeah, this could have been written today, because it holds up beautifully, and it's so easy to read. And this is psychological horror at its finest. I can see why this is a classic. I cannot believe this was written in 72 by a dude about women and what they face. He encapsulates so much of the expectation of women to be perfect mothers, perfect wives, perfect everything they do. I don't know what's happening to me when I think about this book. I have not put into words my thoughts. As you can tell, this is a very on-the-fly review. The build-up is very well done, considering this is only 130 pages. How we got there felt very natural and very well done, very slow, very creeping dread kind of feeling. Really it just goes under your skin and you feel it. You really feel Joanna. She's a great character. I loved the friendships, but I also loved the way I don't want to describe it. I don't want to spoil anything in case you haven't read this, because I didn't know anything about it, and I think that was the best way to enjoy this novel. All I'll say is there's shit going on in Stepford. These wives are perfect on the outside, too perfect. And what is causing that, basically, is what Joanna wants to figure out with her friends. And I loved the way it ended. I don't feel like you're getting all the answers. If you're someone who doesn't love open endings or things up to your imagination or filling in blanks, and you might not enjoy this sort of book, this is definitely a psychological horror. This is what all psychological horrors want to be but aren't. This was perfect in that regard, because it was you didn't need it to be spelled out for you what was going on with these women. And I loved that the final scene also just doesn't again, maybe I'm learning things about myself as a reader as well, but I don't love things being spoon-fed to me and so clearly tied up, and where it's like, ah, there we go, tidy, tied up with a nice ribbon, and that's the ending. I don't like those sorts of endings in my horror, especially psychologically speaking, because that's not how it would happen. And especially for what he's trying to achieve in this novel, it definitely can't be a nice, explicit or obvious ending. And so, like I said, if you like answers and you like it all to be very clear for you in a horror novel, maybe steer clear, because you are left to fill in blanks in this book and figure it out yourself a little bit. But it's all there. If you want to know what's going on, it's all absolutely in there. I don't know how to explain it better than that, but this just delivered for me. Like I said, I wish I could read it again. And I'm really excited to read Rosemary's Baby by him, because I didn't realize it was this author. And so I'm really excited that I read this first, because I've already bought Rosemary's Baby. And I think I might read that this weekend, because I haven't read a book yet in July. And because it was so freaking good. Anyway, I don't know how to talk about this book without spoiling shit. Like I said, I just think this holds up so beautifully, and not many horror authors that are men can do what he did in this book. I thought the descriptions were fantastic. I thought the setting was just so immersive, and you're so in it and you can really picture it. Like, this was just not a struggle. You know what I mean? You know, when you read some psychological horrors or thrillers that are like, oh, this is a bit of a drag, or you're kind of like talked down to because like the author feels like they need to give you all the answers and explain everything, and they have to like look really clever and give like 5 million twists in the last page. And I hate that. So I love when authors treat us like we have a freaking brain in our head and that we can fill in some blanks, and your imagination can be way scarier. So yeah, but as I said, the answers are all in this book. You just have to kind of look for them. So yeah, 4.75 to 5 stars for the Stepford Wives, and I can't wait to read more by him. Hi, this is editing me. Just popping in because I was editing and I was counting and I was like, that's 6 books, and I said I read 7. Checked my story graph and I've completely forgotten to tell you about my last book of June. So I'm just quickly popping in to give you that review. The last book I read in June was All Her Fault by Andrea Mara. I have been waiting to read an Andrea Mara book for some time, and I was in the headspace for like a good fast-paced thriller. And this delivered. I really enjoyed it. This is my first time reading Andrea Mara, and I'm very excited to read more by her because this was really enjoyable. It's fast-paced. Literally the first page you're thrown into like the action and the conflict. So this I'm going to tell you very little about, because if you haven't read it, it's worth going in blind. I did. This is following Marissa Irvine. She turns up to a house one afternoon, Friday afternoon, to pick up her 4-year-old son Milo from a play date. She knocks on the door. She says, "Hi, I'm here to pick up Milo." The woman who answers the door, she doesn't recognize, and the woman goes, "Nope, there's no Milo here. That's just me. I live alone." And that's it. That's all you need to know. It's literally like, oh my God, anxiety inducing. You're going to be on the edge of your seat. The chapters are so short, but literally that's the first page. So it starts like straight away. So you're not going to be waiting around for the action. You know what I mean? Oh, my cat is here. Oh, this just delivered. And I think she was a really good writer. It was really engrossing. You really feel like you're part of the action. I loved the back and forth between Jenny. Jenny is the mother of the boy that Marissa thought her son was having a play date with. So they kind of become friends because of this missing child, even though like she had nothing to do with it. She didn't send the text. She didn't organize the play date. Like this is a parent's worst nightmare. It alternates between the two. It's very enjoyable. I love the alternating point of views because it does keep you on your seat. The chapters are short, action-packed, great twists and turns in this. I didn't see it coming necessarily, but it makes sense. And as you all know, if you've watched a few of my videos, I love a thriller with twists that make fucking sense. It was very like outlandish still, but it was satisfying and dark. The shit that happens in this book is dark and sad, you know. When it comes to kids, just, you know, heed some trigger warnings if you've got anything with like children. I can't say much without spoilers, but I thought the characters were really great. There's so much in this that you're so frustrated with. Like the mother-in-law, Jenny's mother-in-law drove me up the wall, but in like that really enjoyable way. Like you love to hate her because she's so sexist and nasty. But then it was so satisfying the moments that Richie stood up for Jenny eventually. But I just loved the kind of voyeuristic look into the lives of these families. Like you do feel like you're watching something that you shouldn't be. And I enjoy that in like edge of your seat thrillers. And that was what this got. Like I said, ending was great. I thought I really liked the literal ending. Again, can't talk about it because I'm not going to spoil anything. And then my husband and I watched the TV show. And overall that was actually really good. Even though there were things that were changed in it, I thought that held up really nicely. They kept the big twists, the most important parts of it. I thought the cast was great. So I thought that was actually a really good adaptation. I do wish it had actually just been set in Ireland like this book is, but it was set in America. Obviously an American production company, but there was a couple of Australians. Like the lead who played Marissa was Australian. So I did enjoy supporting that. And oh my God, my husband couldn't believe what happened in the end. He was yelling at the TV with the twists in this. So it was very satisfying. There was definitely parts of me that was going, please don't change it, please don't change it. And thankfully they didn't. Even though there was episodes where I was like, none of that happened in the book, but you know, I had a good time. So I do recommend, if you haven't watched the show yet and you want to, then read the book first, because you're still going to have a great time when you watch it. You know what I mean? Anyway, that's a different story. I might make a video on like TV adaptations from books. But this is over 400 pages. So again, a little bit on the longer side. Oh, it's literally just under 400, but you're going to smash through it. It's so easy to read. I really enjoyed her writing. I loved the setting of Ireland. There's so much going on in this little pocket, this neighborhood, and all these families and secrets, and it's gross. Yeah, it's heavy. There's some heavy themes in this, but you're going to have a good time. So I ended up giving this 4 stars. I don't really know why. That feels low, but I'm going to stick with it for now. It might be a 4.5 the more that I think about it, because it was my last book of June. So I'm still kind of like, yeah, gathering my thoughts, you know what I mean? But I had a great time and I'm really excited to read another Andrea Mara book. Anyway, back to the original video. I apologize for forgetting about this one. Thank you so much for watching my June reading wrap up. I hope you had a good time and I hope you stick around for more. I've got a really exciting July actually. I am going to New York. I will be in New York in a few weeks. And so I'm definitely going book shopping. I'm literally in the city for like a day or two, but I've already mapped out the bookstores I'm going to. So I'm definitely taking you along for the ride. And then I'm there to write music. I am off to, to learn and workshop some songs with some of my idols. So I'm really excited to finally get out. Like I haven't been traveling for years and I'm so excited to do something for myself again, but book shopping is on the agenda. So I've got to fit in like bookstores, Broadway. Oh, it's a hard life. But in the meantime, I'm going to keep resting my shoulder, read some good books, and I hope you have an amazing month and I will see you in the next video. Bye!